Welcome to the FemiNinja Project. I am your host, Cheryl Ilove, middle-aged ninja hiding in plain sight, dedicated to restoring human dignity one person at a time and helping you unleash your personal power. Discover that it's possible to look like a woman, act like a lady, move like a ninja, and think like a warrior. And remember, men are always welcome on the FemiNinja Project. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the FemiNinja Project. And I have a lovely guest with me today. I would like to introduce a woman who is a speaker, an author, and a lifelong athlete, Tricia Downing. Hey Tricia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well and so happy to have you here in my kitchen.
I am really happy to be here. We even had the cat visiting. Oh, I see his tail. And that's just an extra little, perk.
A little bonus, yes.
It is a bonus. And from the first time I met you, I was just so intrigued with you and your story. I think you are one of the most inspiring women I have ever met, and I really wanted you to share your story here on the FemiNinja Project.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to have you here.
Okay, so let's just start. You were a competitive cyclist.
I was a competitive cyclist. That was a sport that I took up later in life. I started cycling in my late 20s, but that was not the first sport that I ever did.
Which is really funny to hear later in life in late 20s, because at this point in my life that still sounds like, oh, that was so long ago, for me anyway.
Well, and it was long ago for me too, and it used to be that late 20s was really a late time to, start a sport and hope to make it to, a high level and elite level. But nowadays people are going and going and going.
And I love to hear that, because that's one of the things that I like to promote on the FemiNinja Project, is that we can continue to grow and learn new things and try new things all during the entire course of our lifetime. And you started as an athlete at a very young age, though.
Right. I started as a swimmer when I was 4 years old. And my mom took me to the pool for my first swim lesson. It actually didn't go very well that summer. I didn't really take to the water right away. But swimming was something that my mom wanted all of her kids to do, because she didn't know how to swim. And she felt that was very unsafe not to know how to swim. So she put myself and my three brothers in swim lessons as soon as she could, and we all became swimmers, and we all stuck with it for different lengths of time. Through high school everyone did it, and my oldest brother and I went a little bit longer, but swimming was something that we all could all do together and be safe and enjoy it, and also learn about sports and competition and teamwork.
That's so interesting, because my mother didn't swim. She was afraid of the water. And she and my dad actually were instrumental in having a recreational center, a swimming pool built right off of our property. So it was like a neighborhood pool that everybody, joined. And we were all in swim team, my sisters and I, and did the competitive swimming. But it was just a, summer rec center or recreational league. Although my oldest sister did go on and competed. Is it called the AAU?
Oh, it was back in the day.
Back in the day, were you in that?
Yes.
Okay. And you're originally from Denver, is that correct?
I am.
Okay, so how long did you compete in swimming?
I competed in swimming all through high school.
Okay.
And then when I went to college, I actually started diving.
Oh, wow.
And during that whole time, I was also a gymnast. So my life has been always centered around athletics.
And competitive athletics.
Yeah, definitely competitive.
And competing.
I'm a competitor. I am. That's built into my personality. It's something that I have to do.
And it's something, that kind of spirit that you have has served you well over the years.
I think so. I mean, it's something that keeps me going, even when, I'm doing something that I don't think I'm very good at. That competitive drive, that competitive nature makes you want to keep figuring things out and trying to get better. And whether or not you end up the best in the world or just the best that you can be, I think that competitiveness is something that has served me.
Well, is it more like, not necessarily that you're competing against other people, but you're actually competing with yourself?
I think, I mean, it depends on the situation, of course. I mean, sometimes I'm competing against other people, but sometimes I am competing against myself just to be my best. And it's just that kind of attitude that you want to bring to everything you do, is that I want to be my best self in every situation that I'm in, whether it's athletics or work or a hobby or, or even just in your relationships. You want to bring your best self to any situation that you're in.
So how did you get involved in cycling?
Cycling was an interesting thing. It just kind of happened naturally, I guess. I went to graduate school for sports management, and the grad school was at Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois. And when I was done with the program, I had the choice to either do a thesis or an internship. And so I chose the internship and applied for a spot at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, and was fortunate enough to get to receive that internship. And so they brought in a whole class of summer interns, and they placed us at different sports, and my sport just happened to be the sport of cycling. And it wasn't something that I knew anything about. I mean, I had ridden my bike my whole life because that was transportation, but I never really thought of it as a sport, and I didn't understand, how many opportunities there were to be a competitive cyclist. I think if I would have known that, I would have taken up cycling a lot sooner. But that summer that I did my internship, I learned a lot. They were short-staffed in the office, so I ended up traveling to events across the country, and I was a communications kind of press officer person, and so I had a great time watching the cycling races and meeting the cyclists. And at the end of the summer, I was determined to get on a bike and ride.
Wow. But you really got deep into the culture of cycling, it seems like, from your experience. So it wasn't just, hey, I think I'm going to ride this bike, that you really had a good understanding of the opportunities that it would provide, plus just the whole, again, culture of the sport.
Yeah, well, again, I think it is me and my competitive nature, especially when it comes to sports. I don't do them just to do them, and I'm not an exerciser. I need goals, and I like goals. And so when I started cycling, it wasn't just that I was going to go for bike rides every once in a while. It was that I was going to get on my bike and learn how to, learn bike handling skills, get faster, train hard, and end up competing. And I started competing on the track, the cycling velodrome, and then that ended up leading me to training on the road so that I could get stronger and faster and have more endurance. And then that led me ultimately to the day that changed my life.
So let's talk about that day that changed your life.
Yeah, so on September 17th, 2000, I had been competing for a few summers, and it was the end of the season, and it was actually in September. Well, I just said September. So anyway, my friend was here to visit from Pennsylvania, and we were out on a bike ride. We rode from Denver to Golden, and on our way back, we were riding along 32nd Avenue, which is basically a straight shot back from Golden to Denver. And my friend, I let him get in front of me, sort of lead the way. And we crossed a side street in Golden called Crabapple. And at the time that we were crossing, there was also a car that was turning into that subdivision where we were crossing the side street. And the person who was driving didn't see us. And my friend was lucky enough to be able to swerve out of the way. And just as he swerved and I didn't, I hit the front of the car and was launched onto the car and landed on my back, and then fell to the ground. And, as I hit the ground, I pretty much knew immediately that, I was paralyzed because I couldn't feel my legs. And it just felt like they were floating in midair. So of course I was taken to the hospital and went through tests. I had, all the usuals, the x-rays, the CT scan, the MRI. And the doctors were able to show my dad, kind of what had happened to my spinal cord. And it was basically turned in a sideways S. And so it was not severed, but it was injured enough that, they pretty much knew that I would be paralyzed permanently.
So you never lost consciousness, did you?
I never lost consciousness through the entire accident.
Oh, so what level of your spine is injured?
Right. So the fourth thoracic
So that's pretty high.
level, yes, which is about chest level. So that is a relatively high injury for a paraplegic. I mean, for a quadriplegic, I'm just a few vertebrae away, and I actually did break a vertebrae in my neck. And fortunately, I was conscious through the accident because there were some women who stopped at the scene and they wanted to take off my helmet. And I knew that my helmet was keeping my head and my neck perfectly stabilized and aligned. So fortunately, I asked them not to take my helmet off, and that probably saved me from becoming a quadriplegic.
Oh boy, that gives me chills just to think about that.
That was the most fortunate part about the day, is that the injuries could have been a lot worse, and but after time, I was able to get through that.
So how long were you in the hospital?
Altogether, I was in the hospital 4 months. So it was 3.5 weeks in intensive care, and then just over 3 months at the rehabilitation hospital.
Were you on a ventilator?
I was never on a vent, no.
Okay. All right, so you were it was Craig Hospital, right?
Right.
Okay. Did you ever feel overwhelmed, like, I can't do this?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a major life change to go from being able to walk to knowing that you're going to be using a wheelchair for the rest of your life.
Right.
But it happens in a progression over time. I mean, at first I couldn't even get out of bed because my injuries were so severe. I had to do a lot of healing before I could even get out of bed. But once I got to Craig, it was a gradual progression from not knowing how to sit up to how to push a wheelchair, anything like that. And they really do a great job of taking you through the paces of learning how to live life from a wheelchair. And they do physical and mental and emotional rehab with you. But I think that the mental and emotional part, they keep going. Those are things that take a long time to heal. And not that the physical doesn't, because there's a lot of things that you need to learn about your body and how it works and how you work with it and how you do the things that you want to do. But for me, the physical was more like it was more kind of just learning to piece the puzzles together. Whereas the mental and emotional part, that's more about really digging deep and understanding that, I'm going to have to look at my life a little bit differently now, and figuring out what that is different for everyone. And it's a different pace and amount of time for everyone who has this situation.
Were you married at the time?
I was not married. I had 2 boyfriends who both showed up at the hospital, so that's a whole other story.
I think we're going to save that for another podcast, because that sounds really interesting. Oh, you go, girl. So when did you meet your husband then?
I met my husband on New Year's Eve 2004 to 5. I met him in 2004, and then just later it was, January 1st of 2005, and we started dating in March of that year, and we dated for about 1.5 years before we got engaged, and another year before we got married, I guess.
Okay. Is he an athlete as well?
He is athletic. He doesn't love competition, but he is very talented. He could very easily compete if that was something that he wanted to do. But that's, what I really enjoyed about him is that I could be the competitive one, and, he would be the person who was always there to support me.
He was always in the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. And because I went back to doing triathlon and, riding hand cycles and racing wheelchairs, he's a bike mechanic, so he was always sport crew and I was athlete, and we traveled that way for a long time after we got married, even before we got married.
I won't tell anybody about that. What I like to do is I call him, like, my husband has been so incredibly supportive during all the crazy things that I've done and I'm still planning on doing, and just even the guys in the dojo. I call them the many magnificent men in my life, and it sounds like you've got one too. And so I always like to pay tribute to the guys, because I think sometimes there's way too much man bashing going on these days. So I just love hearing that story.
Right, and it's nice to know that you've got somebody, who has your back and who is willing to step out of his ego or his whatever he's doing to support you. And I don't think that every woman gets that. I mean, I think sometimes the guys are like, well, I'm the star in this relationship, and so you're going to back me up. And so when it comes to doing sports, he's right there beside me, helping me and cheering for me, and just understanding everything I'm going through as a competitor and somebody who's trying to reach the top level of her sport.
That's awesome. So how soon after your accident did you go back to competing?
I did a half marathon 6 months after I was discharged from the hospital.
Oh my goodness, that's just incredible.
It's not really the norm, but it was it was the best therapy for me. I wasn't going to sit in a psychologist's office and, go through my feelings. For me, it was I needed to get back out and doing sports. And so I was back at it right away.
Good for you. You really knew what you needed. You knew your mind and your body and your spirit so well that just, getting out there and doing that saved you not only thousands upon thousands of dollars in therapy, but it was probably far more effective than any therapy you could do.
I think so. For me, that was the right thing to do, I think.
So then what happened with the competitive cycling? Because you were doing, the hand cycling, and how long did you do that until you finally changed your trajectory?
I did triathlons for about 8 years. About 9 years probably. And I specialized in long distance triathlon. So Jeez. I trained for 6 Ironman distance triathlons, and I competed on the U.S. team and went to nationals, and I competed in the London Paratriathlon, where we did a kind of a test event at the London triathlon venue for where the 2012 games were. And so I did triathlons for years, and I loved them, but they just kind of wore down my shoulders. And the last triathlon I did was Hawaii in 2010, the Hawaii Ironman. And after that, my left shoulder just sort of went to pieces. And so as I was going through physical therapy, the physical therapist, taught me that I really had overbuilt the front half of my body, and that I really needed to build my back. And he suggested, doing rowing exercises in the gym. And for me, the only thing I heard was, you have to try to make the national team and become a rower. And
I love the way your mind thinks. I mean, most people wouldn't go right there.
No, but
you did.
I did, and it was good for a while, but I did push it too hard, too fast, and got injured further in my back and my hip, and ended up having 4 surgeries.
Oh, no. On your shoulder?
No, on my back and my hip. I had 3 back surgeries, 1 hip surgery, ended in chronic pain, which I still experience to this day. And that was when I thought my sports career was completely over.
So how old were you at that point?
That was in 2011. So 8 years ago, 42.
Okay. And how did that affect you, or how did that impact you when you thought that this is it? I'm done competing. I'm done with sports.
It was definitely difficult because, sports are really an ingrained part of my identity. And so when I didn't think I could do them anymore, it was like I had to search for the things that were going to take that part in my life. And, I couldn't think of anything that I was that passionate about, the way I was with sports. And so that was a very difficult transition time. And, I don't know if I ever fully transitioned, but it was about 3 years where I was doing nothing. And then I was just kind of just looking online and thinking about what kinds of activities I could do. And shooting was one of the activities I landed on because it's an Olympic and Paralympic sport. And so I, again, called up the national team coach and I said, what do I have to do to be good at shooting? And,
That's so funny. You just didn't contact a local person and say, hey, how do I get into this? You just went right to the top.
Yeah, that's what's weird is that when it comes to sports, I'm very confident that I can pick up a sport. I'm not saying that I can be the best in the world, but I know that I know how to go through that progression of being a beginner and knowing that, as hard as I want to work and as long as I want to work, I can, make it to an advanced level, what level that might be, who knows, but I have the confidence of being able to pick up a sport and kind of take it and run. And, so that's, what I did with shooting. And shooting is a very difficult sport. And it was hard for me because I'm used to picking up sports a lot faster. And it's a completely different animal. So
why was it different?
It's a very mental sport. It's not as physical. It's, and that was why I picked it because I, had back pain and the hip pain. And so I couldn't really do the other sports that I had loved before, and triathlon just wasn't really going to work out for me because I was just still in so much pain. And so shooting is it's really all in your mind, and obviously there's a skill to it too, but you can win or lose based on your thoughts, based on, how you approach it, your mindfulness, and it's just a whole different level of mental toughness than what I had experienced before, which is interesting because I thought, having done Ironman, I'm very mentally tough, but it's a completely different thing.
Well, I would say that you're very mentally tough anyway, just considering everything you've gone through, even just from starting, competitive swimming at the age of 5 at that point, and going all through all the steps of your life, and even after your accident, and how you approach the recovery. To me, it's just amazing, and I love the way you figured it out. That you could have just sat back and not, it's like, okay, I can't do this now because I've got the back pain and everything from the surgeries. But you figured it out, and you never took no for an answer, and you always knew that there was something out there for you.
Yeah, and I think that's one of my, a trait of mine is in that I am an optimistic person. And I don't take no for an answer. I mean, even though I have been experiencing chronic pain for the past 8 years, I'm always thinking there's got to be something that's going to get me out of this pain. There's got to be a way to manage it, a way to get rid of it, a way to deal with it, a way to live through it. And so I've never stopped looking for things. So it's everything from, what I eat and how I train my body to doing alternative, medicine and modalities like massage and acupuncture. And, I've tried everything and, but I keep thinking there's always something else to try, and maybe it's the right combination of things that's going to be what happens. So really, I've really just been able to manage it, and some days are better than others, but I've gotten to the point where it's managed well enough that I'm planning my first triathlon in 2 weeks from now, the first one since 2010. So
you're kidding.
It won't be fast. It won't be beautiful, but
it doesn't matter because you're beautiful anyway. So.
But it's, like I'm going to get back out there and be able to do that.
Here in Denver?
It will be in Longmont.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your spirit, and I keep going back to that because, and it's something I've talked about with Polly Latovsky, the first woman to walk around the world. Mm-hmm. I think it's the tenacity and the resilience of the human spirit that helps us keep going even under really difficult circumstances. So I did not know that you were going to do a triathlon, so I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, I didn't know until 2 nights ago when I registered.
All righty, now everybody knows.
Right?
I'm real excited. Good luck with it. I think you're just going to be great. But you also did qualify, though, for the 2016 Games in Rio for shooting. Mm-hmm. And how did that go?
Let's see, how did that go? It went as well as I could have expected. I had an interesting road to the games in 2016 because initially I didn't qualify for the team. Mm-hmm. And so I sort of decided I'd, put the shooting down for the summer, concentrate on some other things, and give myself some downtime before I picked it up again to make a run for Tokyo. And then during the Olympic Games, when we found out about the Russians and the doping that was going on, mm-hmm. and it was right during the Olympic Games when the International Paralympic Committee started having discussions on whether they were going to allow the Russian team to compete or not, and mm-hmm. they decided not. And so that left, and I can't remember the number, I want to say as 67 spots.
Wow.
Or so that were not going to be filled with the Russian athletes. And so all of those spots were split between the sports mm-hmm. and all of the countries across the world. Mm-hmm. And the U.S. shooting team added 3 people to the roster. And the World Shooting Parasport Organization chose the athletes based on ranking. So I was specifically chosen as the female to fill that slot. And so I found out 7 days before the team left for Rio that I was on the team and I was going. And so
were you just blown away?
I was completely blown away. And I had a lot that I had to accomplish in that week, and I had to pack, and I had to think about how to, stop my life for a few weeks to be able to go to Rio. And so, I hadn't been training the way I would have had I known that I was going. And mm-hmm. so my results were what I expected, but it was a really great experience because it's going to help me as we go towards Tokyo to, hopefully I will make the team. Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, I will now understand what a big deal it is mm-hmm. To make the Paralympic team, and how, it was like, I felt like a queen for, the few days leading up. Was we went through processing and we got all our team uniforms mm-hmm. and all the fanfare and everything, and you get caught up in how fun it is and mm-hmm. how just the excitement of it all and everything. And then you get, to when we got to Rio, I was like, oh wait, I'm here to compete. I have to, I was having fun and, going around and finding all my friends from other countries and, socializing and having a great time. And then I was like, wow, I got to get my game face on and be ready to compete. So I think looking towards Tokyo, I will have mm-hmm. a better mental plan, and I will have a better I hopefully won't be caught off mm-hmm. guard and only have 7 days notice. Hopefully I'll have a few months, once the team is named, to find out. And I think that will help me have a better performance in Tokyo.
Well, it really does take an awful lot of mental preparation.
It does. And you need to be prepared for all the excitement of it, but then you need to be prepared for your event too.
And I would imagine 7 days just really isn't enough time.
Yeah, that wasn't a lot of time to prepare.
And just too, the overwhelming excitement of, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Yeah, because it was really random and out of the blue, and nobody would have expected that was going to happen.
Oh my goodness. So. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to hear about that. I really want to do a follow-up interview with you anyhow to hear about the 2 boyfriends showing up at the hospital. So let's move on. You are an author, so you have written 2 books?
I've written 2 books. One book was a memoir, which covered the time period of my accident and sort of a little bit before and then the accident itself and then the aftermath of that. And that came out in 2010. And then this past year in August, my first fiction novel came out. And I'm very excited about that because, first of all, I didn't know I could write fiction. I had no idea how to write fiction. The story just sort of came in my head one night. And so I started writing. And from start to finish, it was an 8-year process because I didn't really know what I was doing or why I was doing it or how it came to me. But I want to write about characters with disabilities so that we can have more characters in the media that represent people who have physical disabilities. So my main character is a wheelchair user like I am and a Paralympic athlete. So, some of the story was easy to write. And then there were other parts of the story where I had to kind of figure out how does this character change over the course of the novel and kind of what that character arc is like. And so that was an interesting learning experience for me.
Well, first of all, I'm pretty sure you can do anything.
Well, I try.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you've certainly proved it. You've made a believer out of me. And I love the way you call it a wheelchair user rather than, someone who's disabled. Because to me, that is a lot more powerful. And in, physical therapy, I am a PT or recovering physical therapist. And we would always look at, people's disabilities. And then after I became a physical therapist, I discovered something called Feldenkrais. And Feldenkrais is a completely different way of looking at it. It's almost like the exact opposite of physical therapy because they look at the person's abilities. So no matter what you present with, you've always got things that you can do. And by focusing on the abilities, then you actually do become stronger, more powerful. And, just like what you're doing with all of your athletic endeavors is just truly remarkable. I mean, it makes me tired to think about. I love the way that you're doing that. And I love the way that you're highlighting characters like that, because I think that there needs to be a lot more of that in our society to give, wheelchair users more of a voice.
Right. I agree, definitely.
So, and when is the book coming out?
It's out. It came out last August.
Oh, okay.
So it's been out almost a year.
Okay. I'm going to have to look that up because I'm sorry I didn't know you when it came out. Otherwise, I would have come to your book release party.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you are also a speaker.
I am.
So what do you speak about as if I didn't know?
Well, I have a motivational presentation that I have done a lot about my sports career and how I overcame adversity and how, my audiences can kind of use those stories to their benefit in the obstacles that they face. But now I am realizing that there is a lot of need for talk about diversity, especially when it comes to disability. It seems like to me, we cover diversity in so many different aspects, whether it's gender or sexual orientation or ethnicity or religion, but disability always sort of seems to be the one that falls off the edge of the mountain and nobody pays attention to it. So I think it's one of those things where as many things as I can do to bring disability into the spotlight, whether it's just in my community or my own little world, I think that that's just a responsibility that I have as someone with a disability and someone who knows that, despite having a disability, you can still thrive. And, I want everyone else to know that too.
I love the way you use that term, falls off the edge of the mountain. And immediately my mind went to that movie, what was it, The Other Side of the Mountain? And she was a competitive skier. I think she was actually from somewhere in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the person's name. It was from a long time ago, and a skiing accident. She broke her neck and was quadriplegic.
Yes.
So about her story and her recovery. So you are very inspirational. I mean, you're just amazing. And I am so happy to be able to share your story. So how can people find you and get a hold of you?
They can find me on my website, which is triciadowning.com. That's Tricia. And my handle on Instagram and Twitter is Redefining Able, all one word. Or Facebook is also Redefining Able. So,
I love that, Redefining Able.
Thank you.
Boy, you sure have captured that market. I mean, because you are the poster child for that. I mean, it's just amazing. And I guess I shouldn't ask a lady her age, but
I am nearing the second half of my life.
You are actually
a new phase.
It is a new phase, and turning 50 was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's just, I love, my 50s were so good that when I turned 60, I went running toward it with my arms wide open, going, bring it on, baby, I can take it. So
yeah.
It's wonderful, and you look fantastic, and again, you're just such an inspiration.
Well, thank you.
Is there one last thing that you would like to leave our listeners with, or any pearl of wisdom, or any last thoughts that you want to impart on them?
I think what we talked about earlier is just not taking no for an answer. When you really believe in something and you really want to make it happen, I feel like our minds have such great power, and most people don't realize it until they're tested. But we do have amazing resiliency and amazing abilities to accomplish the remarkable. And you kind of have to believe that you can get to the top in order to be there. And I think that's why, as I picked these new sports, I started with, I want to be at the top. What do I have to do? And, if you dream big, I think big things happen.
Oh, that's a great way to close out. So thank you, Trish, for being here. I'm definitely going to have you back again because I want to know about how your triathlon goes. Or is it an Ironman?
Absolutely. No, it's a sprint. It's a very short one.
Okay, so I want to know how that goes.
Yeah.
And I really want to find out about your training as you're gearing up for Tokyo. And I also want to hear the story about the two boyfriends showing up at the hospital when you were injured.
All right, we'll leave the cliffhanger for the next time.
There you go. Okay, well, thanks a lot for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. And that's a wrap on another episode of the FemiNinja Project. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, be safe, be strong, and until next time, bye now.